Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Today we are going over players that I think have high upside in week number 8. Before we actually do get into it, I want to give you a little bit of a explanation as to why the videos have been so sporadic. They've been very inconsistent as of late, and I do apologize for that. We've had a ton going on. We've had a wedding this week, and we are prepping for our ACL surgery that is happening not this upcoming Monday, but the next one after that. So a lot of pre-op stuff is going on. But regardless, once that is over, and probably give me a week after that, we'll be consistent once again for these videos so we can start pumping them out and hopefully helping you throughout your fantasy football playoffs. We're going to start it off today with Breece Hall against the New York Giants, who are ranking 21st against the run game. Listen, I'm going to keep it very simple for you guys. This is going to be a battle against two mediocre offenses, to say the least. I'd have to give the slight advantage to the New York Jets as of right now. They just beat Philly a couple of weeks ago, so they're riding the hot hand. They're feeling good about themselves, but I do not trust Zach Wilson right now whatsoever. I'm not at that point in my life. After a one win against the Eagles, not enough to trust Zach Wilson. He didn't even have a great game in that one, but you know who did? Breece Hall, and he is looking like the man that we drafted him to be in fantasy football. We loved him last year before that ACL tear. Thankfully, he is back. He is better than ever. He is dominating yet again. He is a top 10 locked and loaded running back into the rest of this season, even if this game is low scoring, because honestly, the New York Giants defense last week, they played pretty well. Even if this is a low scoring game, Breece Hall still gets enough passing work for him to be worth it, for him to be started every single week, and especially in this matchup. I think he could have a great game against a Giants team that, they played good last week, like I said, but they're not the best. Next up, we got Jahmyr Gibbs going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are currently ranking 28th against the run this year. We finally saw it last week. We finally saw that Jahmyr Gibbs game that we drafted him to have. We waited the first 6 weeks for it to happen, and in week number 7, it finally did. Even though they got blown the hell out by the Ravens, it was still a great game for Jahmyr Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown also had a good game. Unfortunately, Jameson Williams got the crappy end of the stick there, had 0 catches on 6 targets, but it is what it is. Jahmyr Gibbs played awesome in David Montgomery's absence. Once again, against the Raiders this week, David Montgomery is not going to play, so the backup here would be Craig Reynolds. I'm not worried about Reynolds taking away too much activity from Gibbs. He is super involved in the passing game. We saw the passing game last week. We saw the running game last week. And this is a game where the Detroit Lions need a bounce-back game. They are not going to lose to the Raiders. At least, God, we hope they're not going to lose to the Raiders. If the Lions are who we think they are, they will dominate in this game. And Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get the volume regardless. He is a must-start this week, 100%. Next up, we got Isiah Pacheco against the Denver Broncos, who are ranking 32nd against the run right now. So you literally can't get a better matchup than this game. Listen, the Denver Broncos have been struggling so badly on offense. I would argue that maybe Courtland Sutton is the only consistent option right now. There's a bunch of crap going on with Jerry Jeudy. He might get traded at the deadline. Even Courtland Sutton might get traded at the deadline. So the Broncos might be throwing it all away here, and the Chiefs are not. The Chiefs are not throwing it away. They are trying to win this game, and I would expect the Chiefs to be up big in this contest. Lean on Pacheco in this one. It was very unfortunate last week. It was kind of weird. In the first half, Pacheco really wasn't used that much. You saw a steady, heavy dose of Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that backfield. And then in the second half, Pacheco was more involved. He caught that passing touchdown. Kind of saved his day. He had a good fantasy day, I can't lie. But in the first half, he was just atrocious in fantasy because he was not getting used. Andy Reid, use this man, please. I know he struggled with his average yards per carry in last week's game, but Pacheco needs the ball. Okay, get him the ball in this game against Denver, and you will not be disappointed. I would be starting him in fantasy 1,000%. Next up, we got Jakobi Meyers against the Detroit Lions, who are ranking 21st against the pass currently. He's finally going to get Jimmy Garoppolo back. No more Aiden O'Connell. No more Brian Hoyer in this offense. Honestly, having Jimmy G back not only is going to benefit Jakobi Meyers, but heavily benefit Devonta Adams because he has been struggling as of late. not getting going. It could be another, like we saw it last week. They were feeding Devonta Adams in the first half of that game, in the first quarter of that game, and then they just totally went away from him the rest of the time. He became invisible. This could be another situation where it could be a huge Devonta Adams game, but Jakobi Meyers has been so consistent as of late. How can you not start this guy in your lineup? There's absolutely no way you can bench Jakobi Meyers as of right now, and he has clearly exceeded everybody's expectations heading into this year. I am rooting for Jakobi Meyers to keep it up throughout this season. And in this game against Detroit, like I said, they are going to have to pass the ball a lot to win this one. Not a bad play. Not a bad play at all. Next, we got Keenan Allen against the Chicago Bears. They are currently ranking 18th against the pass. Honestly, Joshua Palmer, he's questionable heading into this weekend. But if he doesn't play, that just boosts up Keenan Allen's value even more, because we've seen so far this season, Quentin Johnston has really not come on as that number 2 receiver behind Keenan Allen. It's been Joshua Palmer so far this year. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to keep an eye on. Is Quentin Johnston going to step up and take on a bigger role in this game against Chicago? Or is Keenan Allen just going to dominate the entire way through? I would put my chips, if I had to bet, if I was a betting man, I would put my chips in Keenan Allen's corner rather than Quentin Johnston coming up big for you this weekend. Of course, if you have Keenan Allen, you're playing the guy regardless. I just think it's a great matchup. Although Chicago did get a win last week against the Raiders, Tyson Bagent is going to start this game once again. I don't know how they're going to keep up with the Chargers. The Chargers are a little bit tougher of an opponent than the Raiders are, so we'll have to see what he has in the tank. I'm not counting out the Bears by any means, but I do think that Keenan Allen is going to have a great day in this one. Now we're moving on to Terry McLaurin against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are ranking 31st against the pass so far this year. Terry McLaurin in the past has dominated this Eagles team, and earlier on in this season, the Commanders played well against the Eagles because they will allow you to pass on them. The Eagles D-line is one of the best in the league, so it's very tough for teams to run on them. So Brian Robinson Jr., Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez Jr., they're all probably going to have tough days against this D-line, but these receivers should feast. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, I'm not so sure Jahan Dotson's going to have an amazing day because we thought he was going to go off early on in the season. He just hasn't really been there so far. I know he had a decent week last week, but so far, not very consistent for Dotson. Even Logan Thomas could get involved because the Eagles are not good against tight ends. But Terry McLaurin is a locked and loaded start wide receiver, in my opinion. If they are going to keep this game close, I don't think it's going to be as close as it was last time, by the way, where they sent the game into overtime. But they are going to have to throw the ball a lot, and Terry McLaurin should be in your lineup this week. Next up, we got Rashee Rice against the Denver Broncos. They are currently ranking 17th against the pass. This is the same matchup as Pacheco that we just talked about earlier on in this video. Rashee Rice is proving us right, thankfully, because we have been putting him in almost all of our videos. He scored 17 PPR fantasy points last week, found the end zone. He's ranking 2nd in red zone targets on this team, 2nd in receiving yards, only behind Travis Kelce right now. And listen, of course, Travis Kelce is going to be that number 1 option in this offense. Mahomes and him have that connection. Until the day he retires, he's going to be that number 1 option on this team. But Rashee Rice can really have a fantasy viable role, and you're seeing that right now, especially against the Denver Broncos. They play a lot of zone defense. Rashee Rice has been cooking as of late. I would not have him on your bench this week. Next up, we're moving on to Drake London against the Tennessee Titans, who are ranking 26th in the league against the pass right now. I do have to give credit where credit is due. Drake London has been a much more consistent fantasy option than he was in 2022. The Falcons, obviously, they were due for some positive regression after running the ball the most in the entire league last season. So London is getting a little bit more of an opportunity to shine. He's doing the most with that, performing very well so far. We do have to talk quickly. You thought I wasn't going to mention Bijan Robinson's 1 carry for 3 yards, and Arthur Smith after the game saying that this isn't fantasy football. We don't care about Bijan Robinson getting carries on this team, apparently. Listen, the guy's your best player. The guy is your best player, and I 100%, if he was sick, if he was actually sick, I don't think he would have even suited up. I don't think he would have been ready to get into the game at any point in time. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. I could just be, I don't even have Bijan shares in any of my leagues, but I'm just saying this as an outsider point of view, you need to give your best player the ball. Okay, leaning on Tyler Algier, saying that you're leaning on the hot hand when he can't even average 3.0 yards per carry, that's a big problem. All right, that just shows me that Arthur Smith must have been playing Bijan in fantasy in his most important league, because why else is he not giving him the ball? Okay, but Drake London, I think he's a must start this week. Tennessee has a good run defense for the most part, unless your name is Zach Moss and you run all over them like crazy. But I don't see Bijan having the best day in the world in his return type game, or Tyler Algier. So they're going to have to lean a little bit more on the pass in this one. Drake London and maybe even some Kyle Pitts action in this game. And last but not least, we got a little bit of a 2-for-1. We'll start out with DeAndre Swift against the Washington Commanders, 13th against the run, and Devonta Smith against the Washington Commanders, who are 24th against the pass. Now, of course, I could have put A.J. Brown on this list, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put A.J. Brown on this list because he's ranking number 3 out of all wide receivers, and I usually don't put top 5 players at their positions in these type of videos with high upside. So that's why we're leaning with Swift and Smith. This game could either go one of two ways, and that's why I have both these guys on this list. This could either be a Philly blowout because their first game was close. They went into overtime, and Philly is just going to lean on the run heavily, even though the Commanders don't have a bad defensive line by any means. That offensive line for Philly is just so dominant that it shouldn't even matter. And even, by the way, if they end up falling down in this game like they did last time again somehow, DeAndre Swift catches so many passes where it's 100% worth it to start him on a weekly basis, no matter what you think the score is going to be. And Devonta Smith, please, for the love of God, you need to perform in this one. This is one of the best matchups you're going to get for the rest of the season. And he needs to subtly hint at this coaching staff and at Jalen Hurts. He says, listen, buddy, can I have the ball, please? Can I please get the A.J. Brown treatment where you look at him first on almost every single route? I know Devonta Smith had a bunch of targets last week, and he didn't really perform the way that we wanted him to. But let's try feeding Devonta Smith the ball, 15 targets to Devonta Smith this week, shall we? Let's switch it up a little bit from A.J. Brown. We need a cool-off week from A.J. Brown, and I own Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith in fantasy. I just want some performance, some production out of Devonta Smith. Let's give it to us in Week 8 against the Washington Commanders. Anyways, everybody, if you enjoyed this video, as always, drop a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will catch you in the next video. Good luck in Week 8 of fantasy football. Peace.